Welcome to a football show presented by Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. That is Paul Kuharsky. I am Braden Gall, and football season is here, Paul. Football season is here. You're back from vacation. I'm back from vacation. Football season is here.
Listen, did we not do this last time we talked? Football season starts the first week of September. Football practice is here. It's not the same thing.
Well, high school football starts in a couple of weeks. You get college football after that, then pro after that,
Yeah. Football season starts with opening day of the NFL, and that's the first week of September.
Sam says Cam Ward for MVP. That's a perfect way to start our show because I really don't want to pour an entire bucket of cold water on the Tennessee Titans' entire emotional state right now, but it does feel like that's like my natural inclination. And working with you, I feel like you're right there with me sometimes.
It's easy to pull me along on something like that.
Yes.
Too much, too soon.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Eddie. Good to see you. If you want to jump into the comment section, please do so. YouTube, share the product. So let me give you a quick little plug here, PK, a little tease, as it were. The Hot Read, there will be a new version of the Hot Read pod coming soon. Really excited about who is going to be working on that product. Shout out to all the folks that have been sort of building that from the beginning with Easton and JT and Stoney. And, obviously on to do great things. Very proud of all those guys for the work that they've put in. There will be a new version of the Hot Read podcast, and it's going to be very, very exciting. I'm very excited about it. And with that will come some new video elements to the YouTube page. So please make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube page. 440 Sports, of course, if you are listening to this, I see most of you already in the comments are coming from YouTube. So please share that, distribute that. We're going to have some really cool in-season products for you that are going to be really important if you're a Titans fan. So really excited about that stuff. Stay tuned. It'll probably be rolled out in segments for a variety of legal reasons, but we'll discuss, and you guys will just stay tuned for that. Share the YouTube page, subscribe, thumbs up, notifications turned on, all that great stuff. So really appreciate all the folks that have sort of helped build that product. It's a really good show, and I think the next version of that show is going to be very good as well. Very excited about it. And so we'll see what happens. Very excited. So there you go. Sinkers Beverages, the 40th anniversary birthday soiree shindig get-together gathering at Basement East coming up on August 9th. Tickets are $10. All the money goes to charity, food, booze, music, giveaways. Going to be some really cool stuff there. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Not today, not Mondays, not Tuesdays, but Wednesdays through Sundays. There you go. Treylon Burks can't catch a break, says Trevor. I see what you did there. All right, so lots of stuff to get to, but I want to discuss Cam Ward first. And it's not even really about Cam Ward. It's not even Cam Ward's fault that this has happened. It just is what happens in sports. And it does feel like that the fans and the media took Saturday's practice at Nissan Stadium, which had a very thin crowd and was very, very hot, and did deliver some interesting and exciting moments for Cam Ward. But I think the hype around that singular day of practice with no pads is a little out of control, especially when you put it into context of some of the things that took place on those fields or in those plays and the previous week, which on Thursday was reportedly, I was not there, you were there, was not a good practice for the offense. So in context, he has largely accomplished nothing other than prove that he is wired in the right way, which I love. I love how he's wired. The confidence, the work ethic, all ball all the time, team player, respected by the guys in the locker room already. Like all this stuff is really, really good. And fans should be excited about the future. I think it's a little out of control on Monday, July 28th, based on what we saw on Saturday. And we'll get to all the details. But am I crazy for feeling that way? Is that just my natural problems inside? Or is that actually happening right now?
No, I think to say that he lit up Nissan Stadium on Saturday is really overselling. People want to be excited about him. It's first glimpse for a lot of people. A lot of video flying around from people in the stands and from media. And a lot of national people were there who got their first glimpse. Those people are having conversation with Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi. At the same time, they're kind of keeping an eye on practice. Whoa, wait a second. Oh, look at that. Let's watch the replay on the board kind of thing. Look, he made some very good throws. He had some very good results on throws that weren't fantastic, which will happen in games, of course. But to make it like there was some kind of coronation, and some of those national people were tweeting out like, "Hey, Cam Ward's getting to the building at 5 a.m. and the Titans are really into him." I mean, that they're catching up to stuff that we've been talking about locally for months already. Titans fans tend to take that stuff as some kind of validation sticker. Oh, Daniel Jeremiah has come to town and now he has said it, so it somehow has more import than the fact that we've been discussing it since May or June.
Yeah.
And we can't stop that, but we can tell the people who watch and listen to us that that means nothing, that he's confirming what we've been telling you.
And so lot of different perspectives on this, and I don't want to come off as local guy complaining about national guy. That's your role. Because I don't feel that. I think it's obvious to see, to your point on that one storyline, for example, that they have access to guys who are trying to sell Cam Ward. Like, if you are talking to the coaching staff, they obviously believe in Cam Ward. They're obviously going to say very positive things about him. None of this for anyone, good or bad, is grounded in any actual, on-field performance. The pads are on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be out there on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I think we'll have a little bit more data to pull into the dossier on Cam Ward. And again, this is not even his fault at all. This is a function of, let's practice at Nissan Stadium. Let's open it to the fans for free. Let's have the play-by-play radio team doing play-by-play and hyping up every single player, which is fine. That's their job. That's what they're paid for.
I'd like to get back into that later.
We will. And the front office is doing their job behind the scenes with the national folks to hype their guy and to sort of, kind of subtly add some optimism to how they feel about things. The national media there, so it looks bigger. And frankly, I'm glad that Titans fans are getting that coverage, because we complain about that a lot, or these fans at times can complain about that a lot. None of that is, and then he makes a couple of big throws, and we can get to some of these throws. The 3 or 4 big throws, if you want to bucket that into, like, let's call them tier 1 throws, because I'm not going to play all the highlights and all. Let's just call them the tier 1 throws that got the most attention. Most of them were either sacks or could have been better throws. And so I don't, that's the issue I have with all of this, is like, and we'll work our way through all of them here, but the big cross field, opposite field, over your, roll left, swing your body right. It's a beautiful throw that would not have happened. It was a sack. Not only Jeffrey
Simmons was right there with others.
He gets killed in that play. And
also, look, it's a busted coverage, so he does something good against a busted coverage, but the odds of a safety not being there are not high.
Right.
He threw it over McCreary to Ridley. Great play in the context of all of that. And people see the result of the play, which is a deep touchdown. And they don't know that in practice and everything, Simmons and the defense are claiming victory on that. And rightly so.
Braden has hated Cam from day one. He wanted Abdul Carter Hunter. What's fascinating is this actually has nothing to do with analyzing Cam Ward's ability to be successful or bad. Like, nothing has changed in my opinion of him. I still think there's like a 75% chance he's a pretty good player.
Just the context of kind of sorting through that practice.
Yeah, exactly right. Eddie says Twitter is not going to like this conversation. I totally agree. And Ed, you're absolutely right on the connection.
Absolutely. Put that one up.
1,000,000% correct.
He says his connections with Ridley are a far cry from this time last year when the opposite was the story. And that's absolutely true. He loves Ridley. He pumps Ridley's tires, and Ridley looks really good right now. So that is a absolute chip.
And I want to talk receivers.
And Calvin Ridley are doing very well together, and that's encouraging. Even if it's one of these busted plays that doesn't mean anything, or even if it's on one of these throws that I think is largely overrated, where Ridley dove and made a great catch for Ward. Now, the announcers say he couldn't have put it in another spot. It's perfectly placed. I think that's bullshit. I think there was room for Ridley there. I think it was McCreary who was in front of him. And I think there's room for Cam Ward to hit Ridley there. I'm nitpicking, standing up with potential to turn and run or to curl on the ball or whatever. Yeah. In a highlight, it looks like, oh my God, look at this fantastic throw and catch by Ward to Ridley. And, in the snippet, it looks good that way. But I just wrote about A, B, C throws.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an A or B throw, frankly.
So an amazing catch by Ridley, could have been placed better. The very first deep shot to Ridley down the sideline, where
he
totally turns McCreary around, and the ball is late and underthrown. That's not a good throw. It's just not a good throw.
I asked the coach after that. I said, "Boy, that opening throw. It's nice that he got the touchdown and everything, right? But that's a B throw." And he's like, "Oh no, it's a C throw."
It's a C throw, right? He's 6 yards beyond the corner with no other safety help. You got to make him go get it. You got to throw it down the field and make him run underneath it. So again, like, fans should be excited about Cam Ward, about the Titans, about the direction of the organization, big picture. Fine. I think there's one key element to a lot of this that is just lost. And again, I'm torn because I don't want to be the Debbie Downer who's just like, man, everybody, like, what are y'all talking about? Like, I was standing on the sideline with a bunch of folks watching the third down period, and it was nothing but like, oh, at least they're staying true to their old identity, handing the ball off on 3rd and 8, and they didn't even pick up a first down on like their first 8 or 9 tries. And then we're just going, same old Titans. Like, the vibe on the sideline was very different than what feels like the vibes in the conversation ether out there. And because this is a show that exists in the ether, I think it's worth having a conversation about.
And we could be being a little bit too much on the perfection side, right? Ridley dives and catches that ball. It's a first down. He throws a C ball to Ridley on the first thing, but McCreary's twisted up for whatever reason, and it's a touchdown. So it's a touchdown throw. Is it a great throw? Is it an A throw when they review film? No. Is there work to be done on that? Yes. Did he get the result that you need? Yes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Fans should be excited about that. You get the touchdown and all of that. But, so I don't think we're trying to take it to like Cam was terrible or anything.
Not at all.
But let's not say that Cam lit up the building and was absolutely electric and make it sound like he did no wrong. He threw another pick over the middle. Second day in a row where an inside linebacker got him. Another thing I think he did really well here is they're expanding. He threw balls to guys cutting outside and up the perimeter, which I wrote, at the end of minicamp, everything was inside. Yeah. They were expanding the envelope for sure, which is another
also great. Yeah.
Thing. But in terms of precision timing offense, they got a ways to go.
And that's okay. That's what should be expected of a rookie quarterback on the worst team in the league. Like, that's okay. Laws says
that's starting to sound like Stillman because we were there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. This is not. Also, we just said we might be wrong. So clearly not Stillman behavior there. We said we might be wrong about this. That's called self-awareness. Eddie says, leave that to Stilly. He's better than you, Braden. That's true. He's way better at mastering the craft than me. And not every throw in a game is going to be an A throw. If it's a C throw but gets the job done, it doesn't matter. Now, I will say it doesn't matter in the production business in a game. But what we are asking here is to sort of be an honest broker of what we see and what has happened on the field. And if you're just being honest about what happened, the results are actually irrelevant in practice. It's, do you do the things the coaches are asking you to do? Because I still think if you ask, I was talking to somebody yesterday about Cam, and they said, how do you feel about him? And I said, nothing has really changed from the analysis of the prospect. Really fun college player, really productive, never played against a team that had better players than him ever. He's going to go against a team in the NFL now that's going to have probably better players 9 out of 10 times he plays on a quote unquote bad team with an offensive line that has yet to even prove itself in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to talk about that today as well. It wasn't good that they were getting beat without pads on. It's not a good sign. I still think there's a ways to go on the offensive line. I still think his footwork and his desire to take risks and his desire to extend plays are things he's going to have to work on. I haven't really changed my sort of thought on what he was or what he wasn't, or the concerns or the upside. I think I'm more positive on Cam Ward, frankly, over the last 2.5 months than when he was drafted. And I don't think any of this has to do with him. I don't think any of it has to do with him. But he missed a few throws against air yesterday. Like I was standing there, he missed Van Jefferson. They came back and ran it again because it was an 8-yard out route, and Van Jefferson couldn't even touch it. Then he overthrew on a crossing route. Like, it's not like he had a great day. He had a good day, but I I'm not knocking him for that the way folks are applauding him for it, if that makes sense. I just think you just take it. It's one day and you move on and you add all the days up and you see what he looks like at the end of camp.
And I'd also be conscious, there was a mix of national people who were there who added to it. And the biggest headline came from your boys who were watching highlights from Canada.
Well, okay. So shout out to Music City Audible. They do a great show. We're gonna mention them and pick on them a little bit because they are on the network and I respect them a lot. And I just thought they were. And at the very end of the episode, of course, their most recent episode, Graver is like, "Look, guys, it's okay to be excited. They're not going to be a good team." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And Mello is good at sort of bringing Graver down to earth a little bit when he's, "Oh, I think that was a touchdown against Jeffrey Simmons," and Mello goes, "No, Simmons would have sacked him." So it's not out of control, but it's.
That episode, like, I didn't watch the episode. I saw the periphery of the episode, a comment or two from the episode, and I saw the headline.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was out of control.
Well, I think the entire conversation is a little out of control, and that could be. And here's the truth of the matter: it could go back the other way tomorrow. On Tuesday, if all of a sudden he has a terrible day and throws 5 interceptions, I don't think it all of a sudden indicates that he's going to be a failure either. So, like, I don't think we can do, like, to be fair to the positive conversation, the sky's not falling if he has a bad day of practice tomorrow in pads for the first time.
Yeah, but I don't think those guys would run and do a sky is falling podcast on a 5 interception day. But on a day where there are nice highlights from Nissan Stadium, they're doing a woo, woo,
Graver.
Ooga, ooga.
Graver is captain of the Cam Ward fan club since the beginning, so he's at least been very consistent on his belief and on his beliefs. So
you should have like a border around their thing saying,
all right,
flashing.
Go listen to the Music City Audible on the 440 Sports Network. It's a really good show. They do a great job. Totally true. And disagreeing with people you respect is part of the job. It's part of the job. So
go to Eddie's thing there. We'll take a thing. Have we seen? He says that he's more interested in this whole Simmons lining up at edge thing than he is at Ward right now. Did we see Simmons line up at edge?
I did not see it on Saturday.
I think it's all talk. I think Simmons loses weight and everybody presumes that he's going to edge. If Jeffrey Simmons goes to edge, then who goes to Jeffrey Simmons' spot? You're just moving your problem. And Jeffrey Simmons is a very good defensive tackle when he's on top of his game. So you want to see James Lynch, who I like, by the way, but you're saying you want to see James Lynch instead of Draymond Jones, or you want to see James Lynch or one of these undrafted or Sebastian Joseph Day instead of Femi Oladejo. So you're just moving the problem. And by moving the problem, you're taking Simmons out of his spot. Once in a while as a changeup to throw somebody off, okay. But with any regularity, I just don't think it makes any sense.
I don't think I don't want to put words in Ed's. Was it Eddie that made the question? Yeah, I'm not putting words into anybody's mouth here on what they're. I think the move to edge is a few snaps a game. They're going to put him there. And Nick and I were talking on Thursday or on Friday's episode last week that it's more likely he is used in a first down situation in those roles rather than a third down situation. And go listen to his explanation on that. It was very smart, and I agree with it that you're going to get yourself into some. You want him rushing and playing against the tackle if there's a better chance at a run play, right? So you can rush the passer. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and I think using Simmons, who is clearly in better shape, and his fans should be excited about the Jeffrey Simmons that has at least gotten to camp.
He's never not been fit. He's
sure.
Trimmer.
Yes, no question. The way Latham is a little trimmer, right? And so I think that they even said that they mentioned that he is they used him some last year in some of those roles, but very sparingly. So again, I think it's interesting. I want to ask you quickly on the Cam Ward thing because I think it was Ed that had a really interesting question. Oh, no, it was Sam. Shout out to Sam here. He says, how would you guys compare what you've seen for the first, let's call it the week of Cam Ward to previous high picks, Mariota, Locker, Young? You can even include Levis. I don't think what I've seen is any different than what I saw from Will Levis in his first week of camp at practice. I don't think it's any different other than he's clearly taking all the first reps as opposed to being behind Ryan Tannehill.
I remember early Young, I don't know if it was, in the first 3 practices, he threw a pick and laid a huge, this was in Clarksville, at Austin P. Threw a pick and laid a huge hit on the guy who was bringing the interception back. That was a big moment that we thought oh, here's something that tells us something about this guy's mindset and everything. But people love the idea of recall. Well, what do his 3 days look like compared to other guys' first 3 days, as if that's going to translate into something. It's such a small sample size. It doesn't mean much. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know. I don't know what those 3 days look like.
I think ultimately that's my takeaway on all this is that I don't really have a differing opinion based on Saturday, and I don't have a different opinion of Cam Ward based on Thursday of last week, which was bad. I don't think you should eliminate the highs and the lows from camp and try to bring it back to the middle and find out where that middle is. And we just don't know until we get pads on first and then into preseason games and everything else. So a lot of questions. Here's what I would listen to, though, if I was a fan. I would listen to the front office's direct message to all of you. The front office's direct message to all of you is lower your expectations. Now, are they sandbagging? Maybe, but that's not the vibe I get. I feel like they have, from the beginning, when Brinker intentionally used the phrase rebuild in Nick Suss's column at the Combine, they have been doing the opposite of Rand Carthon. You wrote about this in your observations last week when they took the podium. It was all about tempering expectations. So don't listen to the podcast. Don't listen to us. Don't watch the film. Don't watch the highlight videos. Don't listen to the national. At the end of the day, the front office is telling you guys, pump the brakes a little bit on all of this. Just be wary. Be patient.
Well,
let us do our job.
I think they'd like you to be like they are on a day-to-day basis. They're excited. They're going out. They're excited about what they've got. They're excited about development. They hope it's fast. But ultimately, they know there's a degree of patience required, even in the best case scenario. And they know there's room for less than the best case scenario.
Yeah.
And, there's no gotcha question about asking them if they can win the Super Bowl. They're long. They were 32nd team. They were 32nd team in the league. How often does the 32nd team in the league win the next year? The Super Bowl. Teams go from worst to first in their division. They don't go from worst to first in the league.
Let's see if we can work through some of these questions. And first of all, Jake, this is fantastic. I'm knocking on doors of my neighborhood asking, have you heard of our Lord and Savior Cam Ward? I do appreciate that. And you're absolutely correct. Laws fans have some glimmer of hope after dealing with the full season of Levis and Rudolph. I totally get that. I'm on board with that. So we'll work through some of these questions.
We're not anti-hope.
I'm pro-hope. Yeah, I'm pro-hope. Sam says prepared for 5 or 6 wins. We got some questions on linebackers and some other positions, so we'll kind of work through a bunch of positions. If you want to ask questions about any particular player or positions, please do so. Obviously, the big piece of news is Treylon Burks coming out of that practice, and I was standing there, I think, with Buck and JT and a few other people, and we all kind of look down, and he pops up. He hits the ground, and it is the perfect single moment that describes all of Treylon Burks' career, which is sort of pretty good athletic ability for his size to get down the field, makes a great catch, but he's out of bounds, and then he's out for the season by getting hurt because the guy literally cannot fall to the ground properly.
He's out of bounds.
Stay on his feet.
I mean, it wasn't a question either. It wasn't close to
it was way out of bounds.
He landed with his thick leg / side leg / butt out of bounds. We don't know for sure that he's out for the season. We don't know how to manipulate the roster spot or the IR. I would presume that they will put him on IR now, which will end this season, but we'll have to see how they manipulate that. And look, something like this is almost bound to happen. So I think in terms of their roster prep, it's better sooner than later.
We could talk receivers here because I think what it does for me is and I don't think he was going to make the team one way or the other, but it does feel like there are 6 guys for 6 spots now, and that Bryce Oliver is clearly above the cut line on this. They clearly trust him. Lockett, Ridley, and Jefferson are running with the 1s, and DK, Ayumanner, and Oliver are running with the 2s. I just don't think it's that complicated. They're mixing and matching personnel packages all over the place and all over the time, but I think it's pretty clear who the top 6 are. I do think there is Ridley, huge positive. We've already talked about that. One of the things I noticed with DK, it was when he gets going on those sort of they start on one side of the formation, runs those like sort of deep digs all the way across to the other side of formation. When he is running full speed, he has an effortless ability to catch the football. That's the thing that I noticed on Saturday was he doesn't slow down to catch the ball. Like Burks has to jump to catch the football unnecessarily. And it's like what you want to see is a guy who just plucks it without slowing down. And I will say, I did think that I saw DK do that 2 or 3 times on Saturday where I just thought, man, that looked very easy for him. And so I don't know if he's good enough to get open or if he's good enough to be a starter or if he's good enough to be productive. But it was just one of those skills that you notice and you go, that's what it is right there. It's the ability to speed up through the catch and make it effortlessly with your hands on those crossing routes where you have to be moving fast and the ball was put on the right place. And I just thought it's one of those things that I noticed on Saturday. I was like, oh, okay. I like how he does that. And I don't know what it means, but I like it.
Now, if I had just listed the receivers the way that Braden did, this comments would have been filled up with me cutting Restrepo, and I'd be getting killed. And I'm looking now at this column, and there's not one.
I don't see.
There's not one thing of anyone killing Braden over just casually cutting Restrepo. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting. We should just go silent here and wait for someone to kill Braden for cutting Restrepo very casually.
Do you get killed for cutting Restrepo?
Well, I mean, I just me not thinking that Restrepo is Christ-like is a sin, and you just casually cutting him there gets no reaction.
We have already established. We've already established that the quarterback is the second coming of the Lord.
Very unfair. Well, then Restrepo is Peter at the very least, and nothing here.
Who's the one who betrays him? I'm not up on my.
Peter denies 3 times. Judas betrays.
Judas betrays. That's right.
Yeah, I think I've even seen Prochet on occasion ahead of Restrepo, and I think Restrepo might be dealing with a little something. He had a thigh wrap, and then next I looked for him. He had a calf taped. And I thought he was running with a little odd gait with the thigh. Yeah. And I asked somebody in the moment who was near the sideline something up with Restrepo. He said no, but I think maybe yes.
Two of the other names I really want to touch on and kind of call out specifically are the progress, and to a lesser extent maybe a third name, but certainly the progress that Femi Oladejo has made. JC Latham had to hold him at least once that I saw in that game where he just got beat, and Latham had to sort of totally take a penalty to keep him from getting to the quarterback in team situations. I think Winston at safety is going to be a real player. These are two, like I was very high on Winston before. I was not as high on Oladejo. I'm coming around on that. They seem to be making a lot of progress faster than maybe we expect. I'm sure there's going to be some ebb and flow in camp where they have some bad days and everything, but the physicality and the sort of the girth of Femi Oladejo is on display. I think his mental side of the game, where he played middle linebacker and could diagnose the entire play, is an asset for him on the edge. I'd love to know more about that from a Denard Wilson standpoint. Like, what actually does that allow him to see at that position that you normally don't see? And I just think, like, Winston made another big play. I think it's a huge boost to this draft class that he's out there practicing at the level that he's practicing at. I don't know what that means for his rotation in the season, but he is a very long, very rangy player who has a high pedigree, a ton of talent, was a leader for Penn State, and only was drafted 82 because he was hurt. This is a top 50 prospect in any other NFL draft when he's healthy. He has a lot of talent, and Femi does as well. So I think it's a really positive development early in camp that those two appear to be. The game's not too fast for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Winston's progress because I didn't see Winston in the spring and at minicamp, so I can't say what kind of jump he's made. I think Femi has made a significant jump in the 6 weeks away, and I talked to him about that at the stadium, and he said that definitely, he's jumping around in the formation. He's lining up kind of like Landry did. So he's on the edge, standing up. He's off the ball, standing up, and this has been reported by others, so I'm more comfortable saying it than I would have been if I was saying it on my own. He's been in 7-on-7 drills, which are coverage drills. There's no front in that. So an outside linebacker being in the back end of the defense in a 7-on-7 drill says something about expectations for him. I don't want to see him in coverage much. I want him to be a pass rusher, but it says something to the versatility that they see in him. And, even if he's deployed that way just a little bit, it's enough for them to bring him over there away from the outside linebacker drills that are going on at the same time. So I've been impressed by 3 days of Femi Oladejo, and looking forward to seeing more.
They did that a lot last year with Jalen Harrell, and it didn't ever really kind of translate on the field in the games because they had him in camp sort of. And frankly, you have to have you got to have 4 down linemen and 7 players playing back. So if he's your outside backer, you kind of have to include one of them. But Nick and I talked about that on Thursday as well. Like the fact that I think it's exactly the way you look at it, which is the right way, which is just, I don't know what it means for actual snaps and actual plays in games, but the fact that he has the skills to do that is kind of what matters. And again, same thing with Winston. Like, I don't know what his rotational availability will be early in the year or how they use him. I could see them using him in that roll-up safety kind of way where they, the other the Adams, right? The safety Adams where they rolled him up and Jamal Adams, and they would use him in sort of blitz packages or kind of around the line of scrimmage, the way they use Logan Ryan occasionally. Like, I think they're going to find a way. I'm not suggesting what I've seen indicates any of that. It's just that he's already where he is in practice coming off the injury is a great sign moving forward.
In all 20 of Jamal Adams snaps.
Right. I want to get to a couple other players. I know there's one other player you want, and then we'll preview kind of the offensive line as well. But here's the thing I do think you should get excited about if you're a fan. And that is every day that goes by where we are having conversations, where we think the things that are interesting about what we see at practice are rookies in this class, second-year players, Sweat, Brownlee, and Latham. And then if you want to throw in Skoronski, you can. But if the pieces that are exciting and of note are those guys, you should be excited about the future of the team.
Yeah.
Because
we get more. We get more on the offensive line as pads go on here, and Sweat. Brownlee's been very noticeable from the start and very involved in stuff. Is he being handsy and overly physical? Probably on some occasions, yes, still. Another guy I would lump in there, and he's further along, is Roger McCreary, who I think has decided to turn the volume up. He's probably one of the quietest guys on the team. He made himself pretty visible/miserable, but not miserable, visible during the time away. I think he was more visible on social media. He did Good Morning Football and maybe a couple other appearances. He's prepping himself for free agency. He's prepping himself for a contract year, which is interesting. An important guy to this team. You look at the completion percentage against and the passer rating against and stuff, and it's not great, but still I feel like he's a good player, and balls get completed against guys in the secondary, especially on a bad team. And I think he's a valuable player. So I would lump him in with the group you're talking about as a young riser, even though he's not of this regime, so to speak.
And if you want to do that, then I think you could include Tajay Spears, who I know we want to talk about as having one of the best days of any player.
And I've been really down on Tajay Spears. I don't like Tajay Spears. I think he was overdrafted. I think that role is I'd be comfortable with Tony Pollard doing a lot of what they indicate they're going to ask of Spears. But, Callahan pretty directly talked about Spears having some personal stuff going on last season. He was also dinged up a lot. And so I think there's a chance for some rejuvenation from Spears this season. I like him in space. I don't think they did a great job of getting him in space. And he's had some touches in these 3 days in space where he's really looked the part of what you want. And I still don't want my situational third down back drafted in the third round, especially with no ACL. But
he's got a lot of burst right now.
If he can do what he's doing with that burst and takeoff, he is very fast right now.
I think McCreary, and I think Chig also looks like he's preparing for a contract year as well. Slim down, more available. Always been a good talker, but I think the two of them, I agree with you if you want to include Spears and McCreary and Chig as sort of like young building block drafting pieces, but I think they're closer. Like they're all approaching second contract decision elements of this. I just mean like if you are like, let's say 2 weeks from now, and we've played a preseason game, and the conversation and the things we still want to talk about are Femi Oladejo, Winston, the two rookie receivers. We're talking about growth from Sweat and growth from Brownlee and growth from Latham and Skoronski. I just think those are your premium draft picks over the last 2 years, and your first rounder the year before that in Skoronski. Those premium pieces being the headline pieces is one of the best developments that could happen for this team. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
But that is
you want all those guys healthy,
incredibly important.
And then throw in, James Williams. People are asking, is James Williams in that group? He's not in that group because he's a 7th rounder, but he is in that group because for 3 days he's been the inside linebacker next to Cody Barton.
Not Cedric Gray.
I ask a question of Callahan because what tends to happen is you see James Williams there for 2 days and you start to talk about, maybe James Williams is, and then he disappears and Cedric Gray's there for the next 2 days and you read too much into it. And I asked Callahan kind of about the rhythm of the patterns for that, because Vrabel would say, we're going to put a guy there for 2 days. Don't read much into it because then another guy's going to be there for the next 2 days. But that doesn't look, through 3 days like what's happening. And Callahan said there is no firm structure to it. And if you're playing well, you're going to keep playing. And James Williams, I think, stood up pretty well for himself in the last 3 days.
He was the starting middle linebacker and intercepted Cam Ward. Had one of the best plays on defense. So, how many snaps, how many times are they in a single linebacker set? How much are they rotating? Who are the pieces that are linebacker 4, 5, and 6? I think is very much up for debate right now. But yes, I would say like, when I'm talking about premium draft picks, obviously I'm not talking about James Williams, but I think to David's question, is James Williams in that group? I think if we are talking about James Williams, a second-year player who got very few snaps last year, as taking a huge stride in a positive development, that is part of this conversation, which is this core nucleus of young talent doing good things for the team.
Any of those late picks that take an opportunity and pop forward, you can add them to it, but they're kind of gravy.
Yeah. No, exactly right. Jason says, have all of Cam's picks occurred inside or outside of the box? I think most of them have been over the middle. I think most of them are in the box.
But I mean, you could take that a couple different ways. Now, I do think maybe there's a tendency thing going on with these last two, because they were pretty similar. But also, a high percentage of his passes are inside. During the spring and minicamp, all of them were inside. Now they're starting to expand outside some, but still, 70% of them are inside.
The other big reason why I think we got to be careful with hype is the offensive line. And Sinkers Beverages, of course, and Shotgun Boys Barbecue. Make sure you support good local businesses, paulkarski.com. I think the offensive line has not looked good, but it's almost impossible to know that through 3 days without pads. We will know much more when Nick and I get together on Thursday's episode. After 2 days of padded practices on Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll know a lot more about how we feel about the offensive line. I know you're working on some stuff about that group as well. I am not going to be burnt again on this and continue to say the same things and say, well, it's got to be better. It's got to be better. And that is true. It's got to be better. And that also will affect your evaluation of Cam Ward. So if you're sitting here going, man, like this is so much hype. Well, when you get the pads on, those sacks that you have to be, maybe this is the way to explain it. When you're playing in shells, you got to be extra careful not to make contact with people. when you have all the gladiator gear on, you can bump a little bit more and it's not going to cause any harm. And so I think you're allowed to get even a little closer to the quarterback the next couple of days. I don't think he's going to be standing behind it. This will be the worst pressure he will have faced in his entire career, college career. He never went up against defensive fronts that were in his face, and he never went up against teams that had better players than his team at Miami Incarnate Word or Washington State. And I think most defensive fronts he's going to face this year are going to be in his face and be better than this Titans offensive line. Maybe not dominant, but better. And I think that's something you've got to take into context when evaluating Cam Ward and the offense.
That's and I'm working on something about Dan Moore. I think we talked about this a little bit last week about how symbolic I find him, and how, to a degree, I think he will define this regime, or you could fairly say he defines this regime even more than Cam Ward, because Cam Ward, once you reached a certain point on Cam Ward's a no-brainer, right? I mean, we spelled out how you could have not taken Cam Ward, but the odds of not taking Cam Ward were very small once you reach a certain point with Cam Ward, right?
Sure.
Left tackle has been a huge issue for this team. There were different ways you could have gone, and left tackle wasn't really the need this year. It was right tackle. Yet what they decided to do was go get the best, quote unquote, best, I don't know, left tackle, perceived by a lot of people, the best left tackle on the free agent market, the most expensive guy, but who didn't have the greatest metrics and everything. And they put a lot of faith in this guy. And they've made some excuses.
A lot of money in this guy.
And they've made some excuses for why his metrics weren't so good and everything. If they're wrong on this guy, it's really something that is going to attach itself to Borgonzi, Brinker, Callahan. And if they're right on him, he can be a real booster of all of their careers. So I've watched him not super closely because like we're saying, there's only so much you can tell, but I do think he has kind of an authoritative presence to him. Certainly that Nicholas Petit Frere and Andre Dillard and Dennis Daly did not. And so I'll be writing that story maybe as soon as after this show is over. If you're watching or listening, or watching live. But I think he is a real linchpin to this whole thing.
Yeah. I think it's going to be real interesting the next 2 days to see what the offensive line looks like. I just don't think we know enough about this stuff yet. So we'll find out. But I wanted to talk offensive line. You have any other thoughts about the hype around Cam Ward?
It's hard to urge people to slow down. But if you're going to live and die with every throw, or every great moment, then you've got to put weight into the bad moments too. Don't forget about those.
Let me set you up better then. I'll do a better job at my job. It's got to be so much fun to call a game in which you can celebrate no matter what happens in the play. Like, it's got to be so much fun as a broadcast team to line up, and if it's a touchdown pass, you can go bananas. Or if it's a sack, you can go bananas. That's a lot of fun. If you're I imagine as a broadcast team, that's got to be a lot of fun.
Look, I mean, Titans radio is, Dave McGinnis is firmly in place. Amy Wells has been a part of it for a long time. Zarzer's new, and this was the first we heard of him. He and McGinnis were in the booth together, and Amy and Will Bowling were on the field doing some player interviews. And maybe I'm being nitpicky here, and I'm sure you'll tell me if I am, and commenters will tell me if I am. I think this is a great chance for Titans radio. Mike Keith was legendary, but also hyper enthusiastic, right? And probably everybody's play-by-play guy is like that. But when you listen to what Brinker and Borgonzi said about kind of having a true feeling about expectations and everything, I'm not saying don't be excited in this role, but you don't have to call Draymond Jones one of the Titans' great pass rushers. And you don't have to say that Cam Ward placed the ball perfectly when a guy had to sprawl for it. And you and I agree probably could have caught it standing up and turned and
Right.
run. So I was just wondering if maybe the Titans would take a chance here to recalibrate the broadcast department to turn it down just a notch and not overhype things that clearly aren't worthy of the hype, and be super excited at the super excited things, but maybe call Draymond Jones one of our promising pass rushers instead of one of our great pass rushers, because it's bullshit to call him a great pass rusher. He's not been a great pass rusher. That's why he was available for you to sign.
At the worst position on the roster.
Yeah.
Which is one of the great in all of the many elite pass rushers that the Titans have. No, here's what I
wrote a section in my Nissan Stadium practice review about that. And I'm sure Titans radio is probably seething at that, but I think nobody ever says anything about them. And I just think it's too much. They're 3-14. They're coming off 3-14. Sell a little bit more instead of saying things that are blatantly untrue.
So I think, and I'll go a little bit more like, and this is impossible to judge on a in stadium thing. Like this is not fair to those guys at all. So I'll speak sort of looking forward, as with more broadcast and sort of media analysis here than football, which is, if I'm Taylor Zarzer's best friend, and I'm not, but I've known him a long time. And if I said, and if he's like, hey man, what do you think? Like, which he has not done. But if he did, I would say, look, it is impossible to replicate Mike Keith. And his authentic, he's a very good golf broadcaster. He is very polished. He works hard. He's a good dude. He's a really good golf broadcaster. I think you have to be authentic to what you are. And I think as long as he is authentic to what he is and doesn't try to be too much cheerleader, too much Mike Keith, that will come off, I think, and it will feel different. My advice would be,
and that wasn't all him. That was
no, absolutely.
McGinnis is super,
as a group, the two of them I think they need to err on the side of break, and then hit the gas when they need to. But I would err on the side of break, and go too slow, like under the speed limit is my analogy. That's, for lack of a better analogy. You want to go under 5 miles an hour under the speed limit at all times. Default to that, because I think that's what Taylor's really good at. And you don't want to come off as trying to fill Mike Keith's shoes. It is impossible. Jim Nantz could not do what Mike Keith does. And so I think you just got to be careful with it. You got to ease into it. You got to take it slow. And then when you find your areas of like, this is what I like to do in this exciting moment, and I think it works, build that stuff up as you go. And again, that's just being a media nerd here. I just think it's a really tough job. I think it's a tougher job than anyone in broadcasting realizes, to replace Mike Keith on this.
I don't disagree, but I wasn't even thinking of it really in terms of replacing Mike Keith. I'm just thinking about it. Like, here's a 3-14 team coming back out, and you're making some of these moments sound like something they're just not. Just like, be slightly more honest. Like your brass is being more honest. So I think that opens the door for you to be more honest. I'm not saying oh, what a bad thing. I know you're not getting that from team broadcasters.
Of course not.
But just turn it down from 11 to 8.5.
Well, and again, it's totally unfair, but every single time you hear the Titans radio broadcast do anything, they are going to be compared to Mike Keith's version of that. And that's just not fair. It's not fair because he was great. And he's a legend. So it is what it is. And, Kalen DeBoer gets evaluated not against what he's doing, but against Nick Saban. It just is what it is. So there you go. Were these fans in the MCM comment section? What do you expect? Thank you, David. Jordan says, let Coach Mack be the lead foot guy on the road. I agree with that. I think that's the way to do it. Let him just, and Forrest, exactly. It was also just them practicing. Totally agree. My commentary was,
I hope they'll adjust off the practice. I hope.
And my commentary was a little bit more like, sort of like, inspired by your thought, and then saying, this is kind of how I would go with this, because I just think it's going to be a really hard job. It's going to be very difficult to replace that guy. So
I also think the split sideline reporter thing is nonsense, but we can talk about that another day.
What do you mean, having two of them?
Yeah, one on home games and one on the road. It's a full-time
Well,
job in football season. It's got to be one person.
I agree with you in theory, but I think the Preds, for example, like I think Lindsey Rowley does studio host at home games and then is the sideline reporter on the road, so that they're not sending the entire home team on the road. And you're
That's
on the road.
You're
on the road a lot.
Production. You're on the road a lot. This is one overnight.
Yeah, and Forrest Point is correct. Their commentary is not usually played in the stadium. Obviously, that is correct. So, all right. So, what anything else you're looking forward to from a pad standpoint moving forward in terms of things you did not have a chance to learn or it's impossible to learn, and now that we're getting pads on, you're excited to watch maybe in a different way? Because offensive line, I have not really paid much attention to for the first 3 days, and I'm going to be all in on the line of scrimmage the next couple of days for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully there's some one-on-ones. And Callahan said there'll be, third down and or red zone in virtually every practice going forward. Short third down or goal line in that red zone are the best periods for seeing offensive line versus defensive line. So
right,
we could hope we see that soon.
I think they ran 3 draws on like 3rd and 8 on Saturday, and we were all just looking at each other like, got to stay true to yourself, I guess. no matter who's calling the plays, got to stay true to yourself. Got to be authentic. Got to stick to the identity. So, all right.
There's one question here I want to touch on from Jordan Pace about it's up a little bit. How long will Borgonzi and Brinker need to pay reparations for the sins of their fathers in the form of Isaiah Wilson and Farley and Burks? And I understand people impatient for that, and that there are teams that cure those things in a hurry. And it's unfortunate the Titans haven't been one of those. But I mean, you look at the contract life of those first round picks, that Burks pick should have been a factor on this team through this year, really through next year with the 5th-year option. So you have to find somebody that fills that. Farley. So look at what 4 years of those guys would have been. And until those 4 years wash out, you've had to really hit some home runs in terms of filling in, not superstar numbers, but effective starter replacements for them. And if, so that stuff lasts longer than you want. I was out with some people last night and they were saying, Robinson's last 3 years, he drafted poorly and stuff, but their record was still good. And I said, well, he's got culpability for their record for the 3 years since he's left.
I think you to the more direct point of the question, which is like how do they replace those mistakes or fix those mistakes? They have drafted Skoronski and Latham. They have signed Dan Moore and Zeiler. I think they've tried to address that. Brownlee appears to be, luckily, an answer to the Farley issue. And they went and they had to go draft DK and Ayumaner to correct the Burks mistake, the A.J. Brown mistake, and to some degree the Des Fitzpatrick mistake. So they have made the effort, maybe not with premium stuff at the wide receiver position or the cornerback position, but they went and traded for L'Jarius Sneed with a 3rd rounder and a $75 million contract. Like they have done the work, at least. Whether it works or not is not what I'm saying. But they have addressed those 3 positions with assets since those decisions were big failures. So
right. But while you're doing that, right, you're not spending those assets on other things. So the inside linebacker is not as good as he should be. And you didn't spend any of those picks on an edge rusher, et cetera, et cetera.
There you go. All right. What you got coming up on the website? Anything you want to plug real fast?
Yeah. Dan Moore, as does he feel this stuff about being, such a key player for them in terms of fixing? Is he feel like a fixer? I'll be writing that soon.
Can't wait for the pads, man. I don't care if PK's being a curmudgeon about it. Football season is here. There was actual football happening on that field on Saturday, and there's going to be more football happening tomorrow. So
Our
football
definitions
things.
our definitions of actual football are different.
Were they football players?
They were football players
Were
on
they
a football
football
field.
coaches
There was no
on a
score.
football field?
There was no score.
Were they doing football activities? So a football field with football players on it doing football activities.
Winners and losers.
Like
scores.
Sounds like football.
Scoreboard. Did you look up at the scoreboard there to see who was winning and who was losing?
Say random words.
Scoreboard. Winners,
what
losers.
was the dress code last night for your dinner?
Yeah, we had very nice dinner. And Joseph Rexroad was really struggling with the dress code. He put out a poll, and then he didn't dress either way that he suggested in the poll, and he was foolishly dressed. It's not that hard.
What was the occasion?
Yeah, it's a secret occasion.
Okay,
I'll tell you as soon as we go off the air.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for jumping into the comments. Again, stay tuned on the YouTube page. We got some cool stuff coming for you guys for this season. Really excited about that. I think you're going to like it as well. Make sure you're checking out paulkuharsky.com. Sinkers Beverages, tickets for Basement East birthday party on August 9th on Saturday. We'd love to see you guys. We're going to be there, so come on out and hang out. And Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, of course, best brisket in the city, open Wednesday through Sunday at 11 a.m.
One of the people at the secret dinner is originally from Texas and raved about Shotgun Willie's food.
People from Texas know about brisket. Just
right.
objectively. So, all right. Thanks for that tease again, PK. We do appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you on Thursday.